When it comes to hip-hop and street credibility, few names carry the weight that Jim Jones does. But behind the swagger, the hits, and the headlines lies a tangled web of secrets the FBI just blew wide open. The internet is in shock. After federal agents reportedly arrested the Dipset rapper in a sting operation that's been months, maybe years, in the making. What's worse? There are tapes. Actual recorded evidence allegedly exposing secret deals, illicit negotiations, and connections that fans, and maybe even close friends, never saw coming. This isn't just about fame. It's about survival, betrayal, and a system that always seems to have eyes where you least expect. Was Jim Jones set up? Or has he been playing a dangerous game in plain sight all along? The story unfolding isn't just explosive, it could redefine everything we thought we knew about him. Buckle up. It was just another ordinary Tuesday morning in New York City, until it wasn't. Social media lit up in a frenzy after news broke that Jim Jones, legendary member of the Diplomats and a major figure in East Coast hip-hop, had been arrested by federal agents in what the FBI called a coordinated sting operation. It wasn't a traffic stop. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was the real deal. And it hit the industry like a thunderclap. Sources say the arrest took place at a downtown recording studio where Jones was reportedly working on new music with longtime collaborators. Eyewitnesses recall unmarked black SUVs surrounding the block, plainclothes agents moving in fast, and the surreal sight of Jones being walked out in handcuffs. Phones were out. Cameras were rolling. Within minutes, the footage hit Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The hashtag Jim Jones arrested began trending worldwide. The initial reaction? Disbelief. Jim? Nah, y'all playing, one fan tweeted, but it was all too real. Within hours, official statements confirmed it. Jones was in federal custody. And the charges? Conspiracy, racketeering, and, most shocking of all, allegations of orchestrating illegal deals caught on tape. For those who followed Jim's career, this development seemed like a dramatic twist in an already storied journey. From his rise with Dipset to his solo career, Jones had always balanced street cred with industry respect. He wasn't just a rapper, he was a businessman. Clothing lines, real estate, and record label ventures had all made him more than just a name in the game. But now, it seemed those very connections were being used against him. What exactly was on those tapes? Authorities remained tight-lipped, but insiders close to the case whispered about a months-long investigation into organized activity tied to underground dealings in several states. Apparently, Jones' name surfaced repeatedly on intercepted communications. Conversations, meetings, and coded exchanges were all reportedly documented. And then came the tapes, recordings that allegedly feature Jones discussing transactions that could implicate several high-profile individuals. Some fans and fellow artists immediately jumped to his defense. "They've been trying to take bro down for years," tweeted one rapper. "Now they got evidence? I don't buy it." Others were more cautious, waiting for details. Meanwhile, hip-hop media exploded with speculation. Had Jim really been operating in the shadows all this time? Was this part of a larger federal sweep, like what happened with 6ix9ine or Bobby Shmurda? Journalists dug deep, and the picture that emerged was both fascinating and troubling. Allegedly, the FBI had been tracking movements tied to a network of individuals operating a side business using legitimate entertainment connections as cover. Venues, tours, and even endorsement deals were being scrutinized. Was Jones the mastermind, or just a recognizable face caught up in something bigger? The court documents, once unsealed, revealed chilling details. Phone transcripts included coded phrases that prosecutors believe referred to illegal activity. Surveillance photos placed Jones at multiple key meetings. And, yes, there were tapes. Though not released publicly, the prosecution claimed that at least 3 recordings existed in which Jones either facilitated or approved illicit arrangements. The community reacted with a mix of outrage and heartbreak. Many remembered Jim's recent positive moves, his work with community organizations, youth mentorship programs, and charity performances. It was hard to reconcile that man with the accusations now on the table, but law enforcement didn't seem to hesitate. By the evening, Jones was transferred to a federal holding facility, where he awaited arraignment. His legal team issued a statement. "Mr. Jones maintains his innocence and looks forward to clearing his name. We are confident the evidence will show he was not involved in any criminal conspiracy." Still, the damage was already done. Radio stations paused airplay. TV networks halted planned interviews. Sponsors quietly pulled deals. Jones' reputation, carefully cultivated over decades, was now hanging by a thread. Yet even in the chaos, something interesting began to happen. Fans rallied. Hashtags like #FreeJimJones and #JusticeForJones began trending. Fellow artists posted messages of support. Cameron shared an old Dipset photo with the caption, "Loyalty never folds." 4. Jim's supporters. This wasn't just about one man. It was about the system, about how quickly it could turn on someone once celebrated. Still, others reminded everyone, charges aren't convictions. And the legal fight was only just beginning. Behind bars, Jones was reportedly calm but firm. "I've been through storms before," he told a visitor. "If this is another one, I'm ready." The industry waited. The fans speculated. And the tapes? Everyone wanted to know what exactly was said, and what it meant for one of hip-hop's most enduring figures. To be continued. As Jim Jones sat in a federal holding facility awaiting his first court appearance, the story outside the courtroom was rapidly evolving. While fans debated his innocence and industry insiders scrambled for updates, behind the scenes, a sophisticated and deeply layered investigation was unfolding, one that painted a much broader picture than anyone expected. The FBI's sting operation wasn't put together overnight. It was the result of a multi-agency task force investigation spanning nearly 2 years. Federal agents had been surveilling multiple individuals believed to be part of an underground network using the music industry as a front for illegal activity. At the center of the web? Allegedly, a group of entrepreneurs, promoters, and artists, some knowingly complicit, others unknowingly entangled. Jim Jones, investigators say, wasn't the original target. But as wiretaps and surveillance piled up, his name surfaced again and again. In intercepted calls, in cash transactions, in meeting logs. What began as a probe into venue-based money laundering expanded into allegations of illegal arms trades, unlicensed cash transfers, and covert financial kickbacks. The language was coded, the movements discreet, but the pattern, to investigators, was clear. One of the most damning pieces of evidence came in the form of a recorded meeting between Jones and 2 individuals under federal watch. The meeting took place in a luxury hotel suite in Miami and was secretly filmed by an undercover agent posing as an international promoter. According to court filings, Jones allegedly discussed business that involved transferring large sums through non-traceable channels. While his words never directly implicated him in a crime, prosecutors argue the implications were unmistakable. In another clip, audio only, a voice believed to be Jones is heard giving instructions on how to package and split revenue from an unnamed source. The feds allege these were references to laundering tactics, using shell companies and event-based cash flow to wash dirty money. These recordings were reportedly backed up by financial audits that showed unusual transactions linked to accounts tied to Jones' associates, but there was more. Digital forensics pulled from phones and encrypted messaging apps showed chats that referenced overseas wires, clean venues, and unnamed sponsors. Though the messages alone weren't enough to prove criminal intent, in conjunction with the recordings and wiretaps, they added layers to the government's case. Meanwhile, media outlets tried to piece together the same puzzle, often stumbling upon their own theories. Some speculated that Jones was being used as a scapegoat to bring down a bigger fish. Others believed he had no idea the deals he was involved in were illegal. But the FBI's stance was clear: Jim Jones wasn't just a bystander. He was, at minimum, a willing participant. At worst, a silent orchestrator. The biggest blow to Jones' defense came from a surprise witness, a former associate who turned state's evidence. This person, whose identity remained sealed for security reasons, reportedly had access to inner circle meetings and claimed Jones was fully aware of the operation. This bombshell testimony, although yet to be tested in court, gave prosecutors a narrative. Jones was the public face, the one who made things look legitimate, all while deals were brokered in the background. Jones' legal team fought back hard. They challenged the validity of the tapes, questioned the chain of custody for the evidence, and claimed entrapment. In a statement, Jones' lawyer said, "What we're seeing is a rush to judgment. The government is stringing together coincidences and trying to paint a picture that just isn't accurate. Mr. Jones is not guilty, and we will prove it." Despite the mounting pressure, Jim remained composed. In private, friends say he was focused on strategizing his defense, reviewing tapes with attorneys, and keeping his mental state strong. "He's not panicking," said one insider. "He's preparing." Still, tensions were rising in the industry. Collaborators were distancing themselves. A major brand reportedly paused a sneaker deal that was days from launching. Venues canceled appearances. Yet some stood by him. Meek Mill tweeted, "Too many black men get targeted by the system. I stand with Jim until facts prove otherwise." As the first court hearing approached, all eyes turned to the courthouse. Protesters gathered outside, holding signs that read, "Free Jim now," and "Innocent until proven guilty." The scene mirrored past celebrity cases, but this one felt different. This wasn't just about music. It was about power, influence, and the unseen networks that run beneath the surface of the entertainment world. In court, Jim entered a plea of not guilty. His bail hearing was postponed, citing the risk of flight and the seriousness of the allegations. Federal prosecutors argued that given the international nature of the case, they couldn't take chances. Back at the holding facility, Jones was placed in protective custody. Rumors swirled that he had been offered a deal, reduced time in exchange for cooperation. But those close to him insisted he would never take it. "Jim doesn't fold," said one friend. "He'd rather do time than sell out anyone." Meanwhile, federal agents continued their work. More subpoenas were issued. Additional arrests were expected. And through it all, one question hung in the air: was Jim Jones a victim of circumstance, or had he finally crossed a line even he couldn't wrap his way out of? To be continued. The aftermath of Jim Jones' arrest was more than just court appearances and legal briefings, it was a reckoning. For the first time in decades, the Dipset frontman wasn't in control of the narrative. With every media cycle, public opinion shifted. Support poured in from die-hard fans and fellow artists, but so did speculation, judgment, and questions about legacy. As the case moved into pretrial hearings, Jones' defense worked overtime to dissect every piece of evidence. Experts were hired to review voice recognition on the tapes. Financial analysts scrutinized records for inconsistencies. The narrative began to splinter. Was this truly criminal activity, or aggressive entrepreneurship taken out of context? In private moments, Jones faced an entirely different battle: the emotional toll. Friends revealed he spent hours reading fan messages, drawing strength from their words. He began journaling daily, reflecting on the life he'd lived, the choices he'd made, and what truly mattered. "They can try to take my name," he reportedly told a close friend, "but they can't take who I am." Cameron, long regarded as Jones' brother-in-arms despite occasional fallouts, visited quietly, staying out of the spotlight. Their conversation, described as both emotional and strategic, centered on legacy. "If this is how it ends," Cam allegedly said, "then let it end in truth." Meanwhile, prosecutors continued building their case, but cracks began to show. Two key witnesses recanted parts of their testimony, citing pressure from federal agents. One claimed they were encouraged to infer criminal intent where none was clear. The defense pounced, demanding certain evidence be thrown out. A hearing was set to determine admissibility, and for the first time, the government seemed on its heels, but the public eye remained relentless. Documentaries were announced. Podcasts began chronicling the case. Every social media misstep was scrutinized. A minor scuffle in holding was spun into Jim losing control. A smirk during court was labeled arrogance. Still, Jim stayed focused. He made a public statement through his attorney, thanking fans, denouncing the charges, and declaring he would fight not just for his freedom, but for every young black artist painted guilty before trial. It was a turning point. Celebrities joined the chorus. Jay-Z's Roc Nation reportedly offered strategic legal support. The message became clear: Jim Jones' case was about more than him, it was about precedent, and while the court battles loomed, Jim began laying groundwork for something else: redemption. He authorized the release of a deeply personal EP recorded just months before his arrest. Titled Under Surveillance, the project included lyrics now seen as prophetic. Lines like, "They are watching moves I make, but they can't trace my soul," took on new meaning. Critics praised it. Fans rallied. Jones wasn't just surviving, he was shifting the conversation. Outside the courtroom, his legal team made progress. A judge ruled one of the tapes inadmissible due to lack of warrant specificity. Two financial records were deemed circumstantial. Suddenly, what had seemed like an airtight case began to feel porous, but the fight wasn't over. Federal prosecutors doubled down, expanding their scope. They targeted other artists, opened new investigations, and tried to paint a larger narrative of an entertainment industry laced with crime. Jones became the symbol, a figurehead in a battle bigger than him. Yet, in the final pretrial hearing, a moment of humanity broke through. Jones, given a chance to speak, turned to the judge and said, "I'm not here asking for pity. I'm asking for a fair chance. I've made mistakes, but I've also made an impact. Don't erase all that because of a story that isn't finished yet." The room was silent. Even journalists noted the shift. For the first time, one wrote, Jim Jones wasn't the headline. He was the heart of a much bigger story about redemption, reform, and resilience. As the trial date neared, no one could predict the outcome. Would the jury buy the prosecution's story? Would more witnesses fold under cross-examination? Would the tapes, those mysterious, allegedly incriminating recordings, hold up under scrutiny? Jim Jones stood on the brink, not just of freedom or conviction, but of transformation. The man who once rapped about street politics now faced the ultimate test of character, integrity, and perseverance. Win or lose, one thing was clear: he had already rewritten his legacy. Not just as a rapper, not just as a businessman, But as a man who refused to be broken by the weight of judgment, and as the curtain rose on what could be the trial of the decade, all of hip-hop, and the world, watched, Jim Jones' story is a mirror held up to the culture, one reflecting how quickly the media, the public, and even the justice system can pivot from celebration to condemnation. But his battle is far from over. Whether you believe in his innocence or not, one thing is clear: the conversation around fairness, systemic targeting, and the power of the narrative needs to be louder than ever. Now is the time to stay informed, ask the hard questions, and support real justice, not just for celebrities, but for every voice silenced by assumption and bias. If you followed this story and believe in the truth coming to light, share this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more deep dive breakdowns into the stories shaking our culture. Jim's journey might be the headline today, but the message echoes far beyond him. Don't just watch history happen, be part of shaping it.